Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our Parent Academy session for this evening. We're just waiting in for some more attendees to trickle in. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our wonderful presenters for being here this evening, and to our ETIS partners. We're just going to wait just a little bit longer and then begin. Romer, are we okay with interpreters?
I do not see any of them yet.
Okay. We can wait just a little bit. Thank you for your patience.
They are in the process of logging in.
Thank you. Okay. So maybe what we can do is start the interpretation poll. So before we before we go ahead and begin our presentation for this evening, I would like you to take a look at your screen. There is a poll for interpretation, and if you are interested in Armenian, Korean, and Spanish interpretation, please go ahead and click on the appropriate language which you are interested in, and we will wait just a little bit longer for our interpreters to log on, so then we can get started. Just want to make sure that, do we have our interpretation feature up, Christine? We do? I can't hear you.
Yes, I just launched the poll, sorry.
Fantastic, thank you. So
I'm sorry, Romer, one of the Armenian translator says she's waiting to be let in, I think. I don't know if that's how it works, but that's what she said.
I do not see them in this webinar.
Okay, I'll call her.
Okay.
So at this point, we'll go ahead and begin our presentation for this evening, and then we will sort of go ahead and add the interpretation feature. So just going to make sure that we're all set. So again, thank you all. Thank you for your patience. Good evening, and thank you so much for attending Glendale Unified School District's Parent Academy on this Wednesday, March 10th. I'm Narina Hakopian, and I thank our participants, our guests, our ETIS support, and our interpreters on this call. Tonight's event is being recorded so that we can post it on the Parent Engagement website in case anybody missed the session. I would like to mention that we have Dr. Avakian here with us this evening, who is the Director of GUSD's Equity, Access, and Family Engagement Department. So Dr. Avakian, thank you for being always being part of our Parent Academy meetings, and thank you for all of your support. As previously mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, and all the participants can place their questions in the question and answer section for our presenters to be able to answer them at the end of this presentation. So this evening is strictly about PTA and all the wonderful things they provide for our students and staff and community. Tonight's presenters are our fantastic Glendale PTA Council. The PTA is the oldest and the largest child advocacy organization in the nation. Glendale Council PTA board members will be discussing tonight about how our 24 schools PTA positively impact the lives of our children. Thank you for being here this evening, to all the council members for being here this evening and presenting this wonderful information and all your resources. And now I will turn it over to you. So the floor is yours. Rebecca, I'll turn it over to you and you can begin. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hakopian. Good evening and welcome to Glendale Council PTA's Parent Academy. I'd like to thank the Glendale Unified School District for this opportunity to discuss PTA with our parents and community members tonight. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I'm the 2020 through 2022 Council PTA President. I'd like to introduce our panelists who will be discussing PTA at the national, state, council, and unit levels. If you have any questions as you go along, please submit them in the chat to our panelists to answer at the end. So joining us tonight is Sandy Russell. She is a member of the State PTA Board of Managers on the Leadership Commission and serves on the 1st District PTA as VP of Leadership Services. She's also a former Glendale Council PTA President. Dave Cole is Glendale Council PTA's Vice President of Legislation. Alexandra DeResco is Glendale Oaks Elementary School PTA President. Lorna Amirians is Toll Middle School's PTA President and Glendale Council PTA's Executive Vice President. And Shalini Singh is Glendale High School's PTSA President. So I will now turn it over to Sandy Russell.
Thank you, Rebecca. I am so excited to be here tonight, and I've been asked to kind of give you an overview of PTA. I'm going to even time myself so I don't get too verbose. But I kind of want to give you a little background of myself as well, in that our son started an elementary school at Mountain Avenue Elementary in La Crescenta, and he's now in college. Yay team, it worked. He's successful, we're doing well. But I remember vividly that first day of kindergarten, you know, and Mrs. Simmons, our kindergarten teacher, saw me coming a mile away, right? She just went, oh, there's one I can get, right? But I was like, I'm gonna go volunteer in that classroom because I want to see who these other kids are, and I want to see these teachers, because you're taking care of my baby, right? So it's all about me and my kid. It didn't take very long for me to like completely embrace the entire class and the kids and the incredible parents and the teachers and the staff, and our kindergarten teacher was quintessential in getting me involved in the PTA. I also quickly learned that the PTA at our school was the parent group to join and to, they had the pulse of information going on at the school. I was learning all sorts of incredible information. I went from, you know, parent volunteer in the classroom, which I did every year, by the way, because I loved it, selling spiritware and becoming the president at our school. And what I love, one of the things I love about PTA in a personal involvement is the more I get involved, the more I see the bigger picture. So, you know, at first it was my kids' kindergarten class, and then it was all the kindergarten class. I can take care of them, right? And then pretty soon it was the whole school, right? And when you become president at a school, you then are part of your council. And the council opened my eyes up to the entire district, and, you know, making friends all over the place and learning and sharing incredible information, and hearing from our superintendent and from our assistant superintendents and so many of the staff members on things happening in the district. And when you become council president, you really become active in 1st District PTA, which is from Burbank to Pomona. So now my circle's widened even more, right? And I have this kinship across, you know, our entire area of the foothills here. And now I'm on the state board of managers as well. And all over the state of California, I feel this relationship that we have with the whole state, looking out for all of our kids. And just today, I was at the National legislation conference, obviously via Zoom. And so, you know, that perspective is even larger because we're part of a bigger organization. So that's a little bit about me in the sense of my involvement. But let me start at the beginning of PTA so you have a basic understanding. It was 124 years ago, on February 17th, 1897, that Alice McLennan Burney and Phoebe Apperson Hearst brought together 2,000 people from around the country with the intention of starting a movement and organization with its sole purpose to look after the rights of children, because nobody was doing that. They would have been happy with 25 people, but they got 2,000. Remember that 1897 is before the phone was popular and the cars were popular. Obviously no computers. It was all handwritten notes and newspaper articles, and people arrived by horse and by train. 2,000 people went to Washington, D.C. because they knew this was a critical moment in our history. As we progress, the National Congress of Mothers. In 1926, Selena Sloan Butler founded the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers, and we would become one united organization known as the PTA in 1970. Today, as you heard earlier, we are the largest and oldest advocacy group on behalf of children and their families. We're not a fundraising group. We're an advocacy group. And yes, we have to sometimes have a fundraiser to make some money so we can do this great work, but it's about us advocating for our kids. And you're going to hear a lot more about that from everybody on the panel tonight. You know, PTA is credited with creation of kindergarten classes and child labor laws, public health services, hot and healthy lunch programs, the juvenile justice system, mandatory immunizations, arts and education, school safety, and so much more. And how do we do that? Because we have our membership. Our membership, when you join PTA, you, our members, I'm part of that too, that's our voice. That is how we have a voice. That's how we have a seat at the table. And so it's a critical thing for us to have our members so that we can continue the good work to look after our kids. So as I mentioned, I was at the National PTA Ledge Conference the last couple of days. It had been an amazing experience, actually. Yesterday, we heard from Dr. Miguel Cardona, the U.S. Secretary of Education, and Catherine Limon, the Deputy Director of Social Justice and Equity for the White House. Today, we met with representatives from Senator Feinstein and Senator Padilla's offices, and we also met directly with Representative Adam Schiff. That was just our group, and everybody else across the state was meeting with their representatives. PTA was in the House, quite literally, representing all children. You know, and today we had messaging that we wanted to make sure they heard us. You know, we talked about the importance of returning to school safely during this COVID time, making sure we have adequate funding for PPE and facility adjustments. We talked about the infrastructure in our schools, the importance of nutrition, the importance of equity. When we are in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C., they hear us. They want to hear us. We're all volunteers. We're there for the right reasons. We're there for the sole purpose of looking after our children. And so it's one of the reasons I just have loved PTA and staying with it for as long as I have, about 15 years now. So joining PTA means to belong to a much bigger picture and lending a voice for advocacy to represent all children. So I want you to keep that in mind as you hear now from your local leaders about what it means here in Glendale, which is a phenomenal PTA group. I remember it fondly, and I still am a member. I'm an all-star member. I joined all of our PTAs here. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca, and I thank you for having me tonight, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Sandy. Sandy is also a former first district president, as we mentioned, and we also have Lynn Miyamoto, who is a former Glendale Council PTA president, who's on the state board as well as parliamentarian. So Glendale definitely has a strong history of advocacy at council that moved on upward to first district and state.
You know what, Rebecca, I'm sorry, one quickie I just want to mention. Just for a point of reference, I also was appointed on the Glendale School Board for about 6 months when Mary Boger left. And I will tell you, I think that had one of the key reasons I was selected amongst all the candidates was because of my PTA experience, because I was up to speed on the issues. I knew what was happening in the district all around. It was an incredible experience, and I was honored to do it.
Thanks. So just a little background on myself. Much like Sandy, I began volunteering in my daughter's kindergarten class at Monte Vista Elementary. I was actually new to the area and wanted to, meet people and also find, friends for my daughter. And I really wanted to help out in the classroom and help out the teacher. So I started there. I gradually started to learn a little bit more about PTA and wanted to branch out. So I decided to apply for the board. And then I served as secretary, second VP, head room rep, president, and parliamentarian at Monte Vista. I also currently serve on the Rosemont Middle School Board as treasurer. So prior to becoming president at council, I served as second vice president of membership development and treasurer. So membership and finance is definitely two of my loves here. So at the unit or the school level, board members can be elected for up to 2 one-year terms. But here at Glendale Council PTA, we have a board whose members are elected for 2-year terms in staggered years. So our primary purpose at Glendale Council PTA is to support our school unit PTAs. So we provide training for our school site PTA leaders, ongoing support. We send out communications and answer any questions school presidents or board members may have. We also ensure compliance as nonprofit organizations and support the units in filing taxes and other fund documents, such as the ones required by the Office of the Attorney General. So we hold monthly presidents meetings to conduct business, hear guest speakers, discuss pertinent issues, become informed on current legislation and advocacy, and to share ideas among school sites. So fostering collaboration among the school sites is really important. And now with the advent of Zoom, we have been able to invite other schools to each other's events, even more so than in the past. So at the council level, we also support Glendale Unified in myriad ways. We consult with the school district on numerous matters and meet regularly with the superintendent and staff members to ask questions and provide feedback. This year specifically with COVID-19, PTA leaders have been involved in various conversations and meetings regarding school safety, virtual learning, mental health support, and discussing necessary resources for teachers and students. Our board members also serve on several GUSD committees, including the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council, Culturally Relevant and Responsive Education Committee, Student Attendance Review Board, and others depending on need. So this year we have served on some new committees, including the Senior Parent Advisory Committee, which includes high school administrators, staff, and parents, and the Online College and Career Academy stakeholder meetings to discuss a new virtual secondary program the school district will be rolling out soon. We have also collaborated with the school district on special projects such as the anti-vaping poster contest with the winning entries that are posted throughout school sites, discuss tips for parents in the middle school orientation video, and the importance of parent involvement on the kindergarten introduction webinars. So the Glendale Council PTA president or representative also serves on first round interview panels for candidates for administrative positions within GUSD. We support the Student Wellness Department by organizing food and toy drives and help with distribution at Thanksgiving and the holidays for homeless and foster youth and other families that might need assistance. We also collaborate with other organizations and school sites. So the Glendale Council PTA president serves as a non-voting member on the Glendale Education Foundation Board and on the State of the Schools and School Needs Committee. Glendale Council supports Daily High, the district's communication school, with a staff appreciation event and provides a grant for programs or other needs to benefit students. We oversee the concessions committee for high school football games, which serves as a fundraiser for our Crescenta Valley, Hoover, and Glendale high school PTAs. And then Council PTA also promotes the California PTA scholarships for high school seniors. And we vet the First District scholarship applications. And then as Sandy mentioned, First District stretches from Burbank to Pomona. So as a council, we hold 2 annual events, an administrators luncheon that includes all GUSD administrators, school principals, and unit presidents, and the Council Founders Day event, where we present honorary service awards to outstanding individuals and groups in the community. You might have attended your school's honorary service award event, and the purchase of those honorary service awards funds those PTA high school senior scholarships and continuing education grants for teachers or school staff. It's a wonderful way to recognize teachers, administrators, parents, and PTA leaders for their efforts to enhance our school system. Glendale Council also represents our area in the larger PTA framework. We attend the First District meetings and the annual state convention and association meeting. Convention includes training sessions, and it's also where business is conducted, such as resolutions, which shape our legislation and advocacy efforts. We represent Glendale Council at the annual legislation conference, which Dave will discuss in a little more detail in a moment. And the last but not least thing the Glendale Council PTA does is facilitate the reflections program at the council level. It's a national PTA program where students create original artwork in visual arts, photography, music, film, literature, or dance. Our school units submit their winning entries to council, which then are judged, and then the winners at the council level are submitted to First District. And then if they win there, they move on to state and national. So Glendale Council PTA honors our winners at a reception with certificates and goodie bags, and actually with school board recognition that actually occurred last night. So I'm going to ask if Romer could cue up the video so we can show you some of this year's entries. Thank you. So it's always wonderful to see our student work and celebrate them. So, and then you saw the reflections theme for next year is I will change the world by, which is pretty amazing. So now I'd like to turn it over to Dave Cole, our Council VP of Legislation.
Okay, so as Rebecca says, I'm Dave Cole and I'm the VP for Legislation and Community Relations for Glendale Council. My own PTA journey began back at Verdugo Woodlands Elementary, where I joined PTA as a kindergarten dad too, because I had no idea what the school was or anybody was. And I went to all the association meetings and as a result, became known. And so Shalini, who was president, managed to turn me into treasurer my first grade year. And, you know, since then I became parliamentarian and then president myself of Verdugo Woodlands PTA, and then moved to council. And now I'm treasurer for Roosevelt Middle School. So I clearly don't know how to say no. So now most of the time when people think about PTA, they think about what PTA does in their individual kids' schools. And, you know, there'll be talk about that from my other friends here with some examples. I'm here tonight to talk about something different, what PTA does with legislation. As Sandy related, the individual school unit PTAs are part of a much larger organization, California State and National. California State has more than 700,000 members and National has more than 4 million members. One of the features of being part of this organization is that we have legislation teams in both Sacramento and Washington working on behalf of our kids. A large number of education decisions, particularly having to do with funding, are made far away from our district, let alone from our local schools. The money that runs your kids' school doesn't come from the city of Glendale or the county of Los Angeles, it comes from Sacramento. So how much of that money is available and all of that depends on interesting little acronyms like Prop 98, the base grant, LCFF and LCAP, and no parent can be expected to keep up with any of this jargon, but PTA as an organization can. One of the ways we do that is with yearly conferences. As Sandy mentioned, National PTA is currently having a conference. For California PTA, each year after the proposed state budget comes out in January, we hold our legislation conference in Sacramento. I was able to go to the conference in person last year with 2 others from Glendale. This year, of course, we had to hold it virtually, but the advantage of that is we sent 16 people. So each year, the conference consists of some seminars on education funding, learning what those acronyms mean. We also get a briefing on the budget from the Department of Finance. We hear from a variety of education advocacy groups, and then we have a bunch of talks from ranking legislators. Those have included, as in this year, the Speaker of the Assembly. We had the chairs of the education committees in both the House and the Senate. This year, we had the leaders of some of the Assembly caucuses. We also had the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Since this theme of this year's conference was a path to equity, we also had several people talking about equity issues, including a big one this year, of course, is closing the digital divide, in a year when we're all trying to do distance learning. We had a very interesting talk by a principal from San Francisco talking about community schooling. And then finally, all of the participants got to arrange to meet with their own state legislators. Those of us from Glendale and Burbank met with both Assemblymember Friedman and Senator Portantino. And, you know, I'm sure that all sounds like great fun if, like me, you're into this stuff, but probably not very interesting if you're just thinking, why, you know, I thought we just put on events and assemblies. But the purpose of this conference is to bring more people up to speed with the way this whole process works and with education advocacy in general. And the reason I'm going over to this kind of detail is to point out that PTA matters. When we were having this conference on February 8 and 9, the legislature and the governor were in the middle of negotiating the school reopening bill. And some of the legislatures deeply involved had to take time away from those negotiations to meet with us, but they wanted to. By being a member of PTA, it means you get to stand in Sacramento with 700,000 other voters saying, pay attention to us because education matters. And not surprisingly, when you have 700,000 voters involved, the legislatures pay attention. The example I can give right here is with SB 86. We know this year had a roller coaster of funding. The budget for this school year was went way down because the stock market tanked in March. Then when the stock market came back up, we had a lot of extra money and they had to decide how to do it, what to do with it, whether to spend it on just, on COVID relief, whether to spend it on education or what. The position that PTA took on this was that if COVID relief money was going to go out and schools had incurred COVID costs, for instance, in giving out lots and lots of free meals, that money to repay those kinds of things should not come from the education budget, right? It should come from additional funds. That we should not be cutting into education money at a time when we already had cut into it. And in the end, we won. The state reopening bill allocated $2 billion for reopening costs and $4.6 billion for learning loss remediation to go on through the summer and next year. And this was above and beyond the money the state allocated just for education. So, that's a pretty extreme example because we're in a pretty extreme year. But I have a couple other examples of PTA influence on legislation. Last year, PTA was behind a bill that pushed school opening times later for middle and high school students. And as the dad of a middle school student, I can see where he's getting up later and later, and going to school later is definitely in our favor. And right now I'm tracking some other bills. One, again, good for this year, would allow high school seniors to convert their grades during distance learning from actual letter grades into pass fail. The intention being that way they can keep, this kind of distance learning experiment we had to go through from affecting their college applications. And another bill I'm looking at is that would require all students in K-2 to be screened annually for dyslexia. We know that dyslexia is a problem and we don't do anything about it right now. So that's just my way of saying there is, this education, this legislation stuff does matter, and PTA is behind it, and it's in a way that affects what we do in our schools, and which is something that individual parents really don't have a voice, but that's why you join PTA.
Thanks, Dave. I'll now turn it over to Alexandra, who will talk a little bit about the elementary experience.
Thank you. I am going to be looking at notes. Otherwise, I'm going to get all up in my feelings and just take way too long. So if you see my eyes moving, I am definitely not improvising this. All right. My name is Alex, and I am the PTA president over at Glen Oaks. I have a kindergartner and a third grader who are powering their way through this crazy year. I wish I had a more interesting PTA history backstory like Dave and Rebecca, but last year was actually my first full year as a part of our PTA. And our PTA president moved to Washington last spring, and I was asked to step into this role, and here we are. So this has been kind of a crash course for me. I guess the main point of us being here today is to let you in on what PTA is all about. If you're getting most of your information about PTA from TV shows and movies, you probably think we bake cookies for bake sales, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a lot more than that. I'm going to be speaking shortly on what Glen Oaks PTA unit does, but first I think it's important that we realize that all PTAs across our district have the same passionate commitment to advocating for students, to enriching their school experience, and to supporting the creation of a culture in a school community that is centered on inclusivity and togetherness. That is what drives us as PTA volunteers. Something that's standard, some things that are standard across all of the elementary school PTA units is that we coordinate the room captains or room parents. They act as liaisons between the parents and their teacher and between the school and the parents. These room captains, they also support teachers' needs throughout the year by organizing materials and organizing helpers as needed to help the teachers keep everything moving smoothly. PTAs are also actively facilitating volunteer opportunities for school events or weekly library visits with individual classes. This was obviously before we went remote. But while we are constantly focused on students, the PTA also arranges resources to support parents through educational programs on topics like internet safety and mental health. And lastly, nearly every single PTA unit, including all of our elementary schools in our district, participated in the Thanksgiving food drive this year, collecting over 2,000 items and thousands of dollars in grocery store gift cards in just 1 week. Stronger Together has been my through line this entire year, and all of these things I just mentioned have made it so very clear how true that is. And so now I just want to share some things we've done at Glen Oaks this year, and while my experience is limited to this one school, I want to make it clear that I know a lot of these programs overlap with what many of the other schools in our district have done. It's really been amazing to see what's been done by my peers in PTA Council, and it has inspired me and motivated me to keep us going at Glen Oaks. So at Glen Oaks, we create a space for self-expression and individuality by giving students a creative outlet through our Art Week and Reflections program. We empower students to think outside the box and find a love for STEM through our Science Fair Week with presentations, hands-on experiments, and the opportunity to explore their curiosity with a project of their own. We nurture a deep sense of empathy and thoughtfulness by challenging our students to show up as proactive and kind members of our school during Random Acts of Kindness Week, in which kids led the way as we tackled the daily kindness challenges. We bring field trips on campus by funding and partnering with local organizations who provide music and theater and dance performances that open our kids' minds and expand the breadth of their experience. We foster a love for reading with our Literacy Promotion Week, giving students a full schedule of activities that allow them to explore the world of stories and books, including a surprise guest reader for every class, story tag with their classmates, and prompts to inspire letters to their favorite book characters. We are committed to supporting each and every student on our campus, and we've continued to do so in collaboration with the GUSD Wellness Center by making sure our most in-need families have the resources they need, and beyond that, they feel seen and a part of our community. But above all of the individual projects we put on is our commitment that every program is available and accessible to every single student at our school. Something I do want to point out is that the majority of these programs have happened during COVID, which means, as with our schools, our PTA units in this district did not shut down when we were stuck at home. There are hundreds of volunteers across this district who pivoted and worked even harder to be resourceful and creative to execute events that remind us that we are a part of a school community no matter where we are. And on that note, all I ask is that you donate to your school's PTA if you're able to. Engage in the programming and events they put on, or find something that you are passionate about and join your PTA board. The more people involved means more voices being heard, and more voices being heard means more representation. And in the end, we need this to be a team effort so that we can equitably continue with our work. That is all I have. I'm sorry if I rushed through that. I am such a fast talker. I practice. But that is all I have from the elementary schools. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
That was great. Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Lerna, who will discuss the middle school experience.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Lerna Amirians, and I am the proud Toll PTA president. My PTA journey also started when my oldest was in kindergarten, and I wanted to be more involved in the school. So when I asked around, I was told PTA is the place to be. So I started attending meetings. And next thing I know, by the end of the kindergarten year, I was asked to sit on the board. So I said, okay, I'll take the position with the least amount of responsibility. And they said, okay, you can be the co-chair of hospitality. And that was it. Next thing I know, next year I was vice president, and the following year I was president at Keppel. And it was just an amazing ride at Keppel. I am still on the Keppel PTA board as the executive VP again. And I am now the Toll PTA president. So once they get you, you're hooked for life. You really are. And for me, it was going to my first council meeting. And at the time, I'll never forget, Mona Johnson was the council president. And it was my very first council meeting I went to. And all I had to do is just sit there and hear her talk about this wonderful culture of caring. And she had me hooked forever. So I've been here. This is my 9th year on PTA, and now on council. So as your students transition to middle school, it's important to still stay involved in their education, while at the same time allowing them to grow their sense of independence. Kids are changing rapidly every day in middle school as they're taking developmental leaps. This is a time where they're trying to figure out who they are and where they really fit in. This is also a time where they're most in need of consistent parent support, but just in a different way. And they still need their PTAs to support their schools as well. PTA is always the place to gain knowledge, and we still need involvement in middle school from our parents. As always, you have the option to be as little involved or as much involved as you choose. Although you're not needed in the classrooms as much anymore, there are several ways of volunteering and staying engaged at middle school. At Toll Middle School, we have a mall shop that parents can volunteer at. Across our middle schools in the district, parents can help out at concession stands at the sporting games, help out at the cafeteria during lunchtime to earn some extra funds for their tours, help out at different events at your school, such as dances and back to school movie nights and so on. If you don't have time to volunteer, but you still like to stay in the know, then attending their PTA association meetings is also another option. PTA continues to work closely with our administrators, so this is a great place where you can hear our principals, guidance counselors, and guest speakers talking about important issues and what's going on at our schools and at our district. During the pandemic, for example, Toll PTA focused on supporting the mental health of our students and our families. So we collaborated with the GUSD Wellness Service Department and discussed different topics of mental health at our association meetings and provided our families with the services and resources that they needed. Due to COVID, we were able, since we had gone online, since we had gone to remote learning, we were able to open up our mental health forum district-wide and invite parents from all over to join us. And that was actually a huge success. We had over 2,000 parents join in, and there was requests for more forums. Realizing the changes that our kids go through, we shift our focus a little bit in middle school. And every PTA can choose what programs best fit their respective sites. On top of our usually community building events, PTA typically brings programs to our middle schools, which can empower our young adolescents by teaching them the importance of the student voice and self-advocacy. At Toll Middle School, we give our students a seat on the Toll PTA executive board and have them involved in all the decision making. We promote diversity and inclusion by modeling it on our PTA executive boards. Middle school PTAs bring fun, interactive programs such as breakdancing assemblies to educate our kids on the importance of accepting others, embracing our differences, and treating everybody with respect and dignity, as well as making healthy choices in life. We also continue to promote self-expression through our usual PTA Reflections program and Red Ribbon Week art and video contests. Our middle school PTAs host student panel discussions where we invite current high schoolers to come and talk to our middle schoolers about high school and how they can transition to high school. They discuss their high school experience with that and share tips on what they believe made them successful in high school and much more. We also have programs geared towards service projects, which students can learn to volunteer and earn volunteer hours for. PTA works with other student groups such as the California Junior Scholastic Federation and on programs such as the Builders Club. At Toll PTA, you can also work at our mall shop to earn volunteer hours. And we continue teaching our kids the importance of giving back to the community, partnering with our ASBs and the GUSD Student Wellness Department on toy drives and food drives. Middle school is really a great place to be, and it's important for middle schoolers as well as our parents to know that they're part of a community and that we all grow and work together. Every cluster is different and they all have their own community events, but I will share with you two of my favorite events at the Keppel, Toll, and Hoover block, which is the annual art block party where Glenwood Road is completely closed off, and it's a day of festivities by our PTAs for our school communities, our students, and everyone from our district is welcome, as well as our tri-school welcome back to school breakfast, where every year all three PTAs host one beautiful big breakfast event for all of our Toll, Keppel, and Hoover teachers and administrators. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lorna. I'll now pass it over to Shalini, one of our very longtime volunteers, who will speak to you about high school.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, everybody. My name is Shalini Singh, and I've been a PTA volunteer since 2006 when my son was in kindergarten, and I walked in with my then 2-month-old baby in the stroller. I have served on various PTA committees on, I can't even recall all the board positions that I have assumed over the years. I've been at Verdugo Woodlands Elementary, at Wilson Middle School, at Crescenta Valley High School, and I'm currently the PTA president at Glendale High School. As everybody mentioned over here, parenting teens, the requirements of teenage students is very different. When our kids are younger, in elementary school and even younger, we have a lot of parent support. We have our core parent group that we meet, we talk to, and we kind of very organically talk about issues facing our students. Once they get to the teenage years, you can do some of it at home, but mostly you need a community for that. And that is where PTA steps in. PTA provides that platform for us to address issues as they are transitioning from middle school, high school, they're teenagers, young adults. So at the high school level, again, I'm speaking not just for Glendale High, but from what I've seen at other high schools. And over here, there are talks held about student mental health initiatives, talks related to suicide prevention support, talk about problems of vaping, alcohol usage in college, because as our seniors graduate out, those are the issues that they face. It's very different from what you see at the elementary level. We also talk about internet safety. We had a Start Smart program that we had the California Highway Patrol come and speak to our kids about that. There are college and career readiness programs that are held. Some of them independently by PTSA, but a lot of these programs are held tied with GUSD. And the GUSD and PTA partnership is really strong. You see the strength of it at the high school level. PTA's mission has also always been about all students. At the high school level, you see a lot of activities with booster clubs for sports, for drama, for theater, music, all of that. PTA helps the students by echoing out those fundraisers to our community and to our membership. I'm constantly posting on Facebook, address this fundraiser and that fundraiser. There's Chipotle tonight, by the way. So anyway, so we serve our students. One of the ways we serve our students is to echo out these ones. Usually PTAs host a hospitality event for teachers and staff to thank them and to welcome them back to school. And for parents, we have a host of information sessions. Again, some of the issues mentioned, but also it's different every year. Some of it is ongoing. Some of them are just current issues. Like right now, there's obviously COVID fatigue. So those are the things, again, in unison with GUSD. So essentially all of these activities are to make the community stronger. It's all about bringing everybody together. Again, I think as Lerna mentioned, all high schools and middle schools, they offer their own programs. And some of them, they participate by offering concessions at the football games. That's, again, it's a fundraiser, but it's also being there for the community. One of the things that I've heard of many times is the fundraiser at Hoover High School, which is apparently a tradition since 1957, which is called the Tour of Homes. I'm sure you've all heard about it. So the funds raised from that go towards giving scholarship to the students. So that's how it's done at Hoover High. So every school comes up with just a different way of doing things. Arts advocacy is another big thing for PTA. I know Reflections is big in elementary school, and it kind of, you would see that by middle and high school, kids who have chosen an arts program, either they're in music, theater, drama, one of those, they are exposed to the arts. But there's a lot of students who don't have it in their schedules. This one program offers them that opportunity. Even if you're not in a program for the whole semester, give it a shot, try it. It's a different, very relevant theme every year, give it a shot. So at least there's, whatever exposure that PTA can give, we do that. And I just want to end by saying that PTA addresses student issues, not just in our individual high schools, but as you've heard, across the city, state, nationwide. It's just because you don't see PTA as a physical presence in your high school does not mean that PTA is not relevant to or serving your high schooler. We are. So parents, as much as you can, stay involved. If nothing else, take a membership if you're able. Even that one little thing helps PTA have a stronger voice, not just for your kid or my kid, but for all kids. So please, take membership. Once a membership chair, always a membership chair. And I just want to end by saying, as much as I've been involved and given to PTA, I have taken back a lot more. I have met some absolutely beautiful, wonderful people. Some of you are on the panel here. A lot of you are not, but friends, I've made lifelong friends, just volunteering at activities, being frustrated at the same thing. There's no volunteers. It's just that common angst and the common joy of seeing our kids' artwork and all of that stuff. It's a joy. So I just feel extremely lucky to have been roped in like many of you. So that I'll turn it over to Rebecca for the remaining presentation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So I want to thank all our presenters this evening. I'd like to also thank our volunteers. It really takes a village. So whether you're a board member, chairperson, teacher, administrator, community member who has volunteered in some capacity or just joined as a member, as we mentioned, we really appreciate your efforts to make our local organization great. We do get asked a lot about membership and what funds stay at the local level. So I just wanted to kind of address that a little bit. When you join as a member, some of your membership amount stays at your school. Some goes to council, some goes to first district, and then state and national. But 100% of any fundraising that is done at the school site stays at the school site and really is meant to benefit all kids. So a lot of things might be, teacher stipends or something for classroom supplies. We fund a lot of assemblies, really educational enhancements and things. As Dave mentioned, fighting for all the education dollars. As we know, it doesn't cover everything. And so PTA really tries to enhance our community in that way. Would anyone like to add anything else, or are there any questions from?
Looking at the questions, any Q&A, if anybody has any questions, they can put it in the Q&A portion, but if anybody would like to add, Sandy?
Yeah, I think, God, you guys were all just so amazing. I'm so proud. I've known most of you, Alexandra, you and I, we're going to get to know each other. I can tell already, but the rest of you on the panel, I've known for a long time, and I'm just so thrilled and so proud to be part of you. I did want to just very basically add something for understanding purposes, is that each PTA at each school is its own nonprofit entity. You are a legal nonprofit entity. Okay, just like a booster club would have to be, or a foundation or whatever. And having that, you have to, adhere to IRS guidelines and Attorney General rules and regulations. Those are for any nonprofit entity. The beauty of PTA is that you have this support. You have this incredible support network that is there to help you with all of that kind of information. And your council is supported by the first district, and first district is supported by state and national. So that's part of the family of it, right? We're there to help you, and you are under our umbrella. So there are guidelines within our organization, but we're there to help you and support you in all ways. So.
Thank you. And we did get kind of one question about foundations. So PTA is separate from our school foundations. Sometimes we work together, but we are, as we mentioned, affiliated with the larger organization, whereas a school foundation is usually just affiliated with their own school site. There is the larger Glendale Education Foundation, which I mentioned earlier, which we also PTA also works with.
Yeah, and let me just add with that, as a nonprofit, by the way, there is no commingling of funds. That is a IRS law. So your school foundation will have their own separate thing that they have to file with the Attorney General and the IRS, as does each of your PTAs. And so there cannot be any commingling of funds. So some very specific information on that Rebecca is well aware of, and we can always give lots of details.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about support. As Dave and I both mentioned, we've been treasurers and filing taxes and things like that. We have the support of council to help with that, and First District and sometimes state if we need some of the assistance, because those things can definitely be tricky, and we want to keep all our PTA's money and on board and not pay fines and things like that. So that support system is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions in the chat? I don't see any other questions. Any other comments from our fantastic panel members? What all this lovely information, and also thank you for everything you do. You know, I'm a product of Glendale Unified. I was first grade till 12th, and all the things that PTAs have done and to support me throughout my you know, my journey as like a first grader to 12th grader. We as students, you realize it later on. You're like, wow, all these things and that PTA did. So thank you. Thanks for everything. And I'm sure our students appreciate it, and you know, even the little ones, you know, so thank you. And during this COVID time and everything that you've done, and whether it's behind the scenes or whatnot, just helping administration and everything you've done with the food drives has just been wonderful. So thank you so much for everything. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to.
If I could also chime in, I want to thank our PTA. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the wonderful presentation from every angle, especially the differences from elementary to middle and high school. I want to say, as the Director of the Equity, Access, and Family Engagement Department, I'm truly privileged to have the opportunity to support our families and to connect with our families, but to have our PTA, such an active, wonderful PTA, to be on board with all of this just makes the job so much more pleasant and so much more doable. I'm a staunch supporter of PTA myself. As a parent, I was a PTA active parent at Keppel. And then moving on as a classroom teacher, I was a PTA active teacher at Glen Oaks, and I have my certificates, my honorary certificates to prove. And then later on, as a principal of Jefferson, I was very involved with ensuring that my PTA was on board. So kudos to all of you. I want to remind our audience, this is all voluntary, and for all these folks to want to give up their personal time to make a difference, not just for their own children, for all of the children, all 26,000 students in our district, it's truly a commendable act of commendable work that you do, and we as a district are truly grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So on that note, it's 6:33 and we would like to end our meeting. We would like to thank so much for our attendees. We appreciate the time you take to attend our Parent Academy sessions, but thank you to our PTA members who are here this evening sharing this wonderful information, and thank you to all of your hard work and dedication. As Dr. Avakian mentioned, you know, it's just fantastic, and we're so lucky to have you. We would also like to thank our interpreters and also Romer being on the call. So thank you, Romer, for being on the Zoom call. A little plug on our next Parent Academy session will be on March 23rd at 5:30. Our GUSD Teaching and Learning Department will be presenting about the California Healthy Youth Act. So I hope to see you all there on March 23rd. It's after spring break. But again, thank you so much to everyone for being here. Thank you to our PTA. Thank you for everything that you do. And we hope that you all have a wonderful evening, and good night to you all. Thank you.